If you recall, we are spending 3 weeks on Module 5. So this is going to be called 5B, but not in your book. We're still on 5A, I think. Wherever we're talking about the cephalopods. Cephalopoda.
Yes.
And there's like barely any writing for you to do. Hooray, right?
Week 5A.
It's still on A. Okay, it's still on A. So we're still in phylum Mollusca, the mollusks, but we're going to look at class Cephalopoda, a very interesting group of the mollusks. So last time, remember, we dissected the clam. So those, and we looked at the shells. Those are typically when we think about mollusks. All right, today we're going to be looking at a different kind of mollusk, the cephalopods. So what are the cephalopods? I don't know if you have a place to write something down. Yes, some cephalopods? A little something? It means head, foot. So a head and a foot. They're head-footed creatures. They have a head and they have a foot. Their foot is divided usually into numerous tentacles. All right? Numerous, like, say, 8, for instance, or 10. So you have guesses there? Here we go. Our examples would be squid, octopus, nautilus, and the cuttlefish. Those are the 4 things we'll be looking at today. And they're fascinating. And in the case of the squid, delicious. All right? I don't know about the other ones. I don't know if we eat. Well, I guess we eat octopus, right? I don't know that I'm a fan of octopus, but I know they actually eat the tentacles of the octopus, and that's creepy. All right, they have interesting eyes. We're going to look at their eyes. We're going to see one of the most complex eyes in the animal world when we look at the squid's eye today. They're complex, meaning they have a lens and a cornea, an iris, all that stuff, kind of like our eye. That's mostly, we're talking about the squid there. They're smart. Have you heard about how smart octopuses are? Right? That they can, it's actually octopuses. It's not. The plural of octopus is octopuses. Sorry, it is. Yeah. I would prefer to call them octopi. But, all right. But they're smart. In the case of the octopus, we know that it has really good mobility, right? It can squeeze through very, very small places because it doesn't have bones, right? It's an invertebrate. These are all invertebrates.
Isn't it like the sliver of paper?
I'm not sure if it's that thin, but it certainly can move through very, very small spaces. And if you've seen, Finding Nemo or whichever one of those, right? He's always. And then we're gonna actually cover the octopus in more detail when we get to the place where he lives. So even though we're talking about these animals now, we will talk about them again, some of them, when we're talking about the niche in which they reside. Okay? So later in the year. Sophisticated camouflaging system. They use something called chromatophores, which help them change the color of their skin almost immediately, at will. It's quite fascinating how well they can change. They're agile swimmers, meaning they are nectonic. Write that word down somewhere, nectonic. They're not planktonic, which means floating. They're nectonic, which means swimming. They can overcome a current. All right, so nectonic. And we'll get to the ones that crawl later, the benthic ones. Okay. They have a muscular mantle enclosing gills, very similar to our clam. Our clam had a muscular mantle. We saw those, very muscular, wasn't it? And that was making that shell. So we're going to see no shell in this particular case. They often have ink sacs that release an inky dark fluid, which actually makes a cloud sort of to hide them from their pursuers if they're being pursued by a predator. All right, so they're able to squirt that out. We will hopefully find that today in our really, really cool dissection we have today. I have a bucket of squid right there. I was looking all over for my squid, and I couldn't find, only found the 2, and I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sure I ordered squid. I couldn't remember. Then I remember, oh, that's right. I have a bucket full of them. So, I don't know how many are in there. I thought I was making y'all share a squid. Maybe you have your own squid. Don't know. All right. What and how do cephalopods eat? Okay, they eat fish and crabs, so they're carnivorous. They use suction cups on their tentacles to hold on to their prey, and then they pull their prey into their mouth. Now, their mouth, to me, is the creepiest and most interesting part of them. It's a beak. You'll dissect it today and see it. Okay, I'm not kidding. It's a beak like a bird. It's in the center, like where their tentacles bring it up to their mouth, which is right in the middle. And some actually are venomous. They will inject venom into their prey. Not all. Some of them are poisonous. Remember the difference. Venomous is they're injecting venom into you. Poison is if you eat them, they kill you. That's poisonous. So some of them are that too. Gotta be careful what you eat out there. All right, so that's their eating habits. Let's take a look at their tentacles a little bit. They have different arrangements depending on the creature we're looking at. So here's an octopus that has the suckers. Now there's a little ring around the little suction cup right there. And in fact, on our squid, you should be able to find the little ring. The ring should come off fairly easily, and you'll see these little kind of cartilaginous rings that are on there that kind of create that area where they can pull water through and cause, I don't like the word, but suction. It's really water flow coming through there. Here we have the cuttlefish. Notice those little rings not only have the rings, but also like little teeth action on there to really kind of hold on to their prey. Also the squid. So our squid, if you look real closely, that ring should come off. You should see some little projections like teeth on there. And then we have another squid here that have the suckers with a claw on them. Okay, so a type of claw. That's not our squid, I don't think. Maybe that's a giant squid. Not sure. Okay, here's one. Here's an octopus right there. You can see the ring. All right, around there, and then of course water flow coming through there. Here's one close-up of an actual picture of them. I think that's a squid. You can see the little teeth on there. And then this is really a close-up picture showing you how that open space right there is able to pull water through there, allowing for it to hold on to whatever it's trying to find. All right, so our squid is going to look something like this, and we're going to be looking for various things. You know, we're always starting with the gross anatomy, meaning before you cut into it at all. And you're going to count tentacles. We've got our tentacles here, and then our long tentacles right here that have a different name. I can't remember what they are right now. And then you're going to see on the inside there is, even though these are invertebrates, they do have a little bit of a shell, but it's an internal shell. And that shell is right in here. It's this kind of hard internal shell right here, and we call that a pen, P-E-N, like you're writing with that pen. And then, in fact, I'm going to make you use the pen and dip it into the ink and write something on your book with it, okay? The pen breaks a lot, and the ink sometimes is solidified, so it may not work, but hopefully we'll have some liquid ink in there. The ink sac is, you'll see it right here, ink sac right here, that they're able to spit out the end here. So notice their gut, the mouth is right here, here's that beak right there, comes into the stomach, and then when it exits out, it kind of comes out the front here. So even though it has a complete stomach, a mouth, an esophagus, a stomach, and then intestines and anus right here, that it doesn't empty out the end, it empties out the front. So everything kind of comes out the front of that that floppy part in the front, the mantle part of it. Okay, which by the way is the thing we eat in a squid. We eat this mantle part right here. And if you get small squid, for instance, and you kill them and you take their insides out, their outsides kind of roll up into a little ring. So if you've ever had calamari and it was in a ring, it's because they were fairly small squid, and when you pull that stuff out, it just automatically turns it into like this little ring of muscular tissue right there. Okay, we should have gills in there. Yeah, gills. We should hopefully be able to find those. I have the squid that I can see are these ones, and they're fairly small. And I'm not sure how big the ones in the bucket are. Although my husband opened the bucket for me this morning, so I didn't have to. All right, so this is the mouth. Okay, so the tentacles are peeled back. So before we do any cutting, we're going to peel those tentacles back like that. Just kind of spread them out. Count them, all that kind of stuff. Look for the little suction cups on there. And then I want you to take a look. That's the mouth part. So this is a muscle holding on to the, I'm going to say teeth, but it's a beak. All right? And then we will actually cut away that muscle and get that beak. I promise you, it looks like that. It's like a bird's beak. It's crazy. And so you think, oh, that sweet octopus, man alive, if you're going into that mouth, whoosh, not cute. All right, so a camouflage, these are some of the cells on the skin called chromatophores. And if we look closer at the cell, it looks something like this, and it has all this action going in here where they can take, here's our nucleus, pigment granules and squeeze them out. Okay, so it turns out that they can pigment themselves like almost anything that they happen to be on. So like say we put an octopus on this floor, it would make itself look like this floor. And I'm thinking, well, how does it know to make itself look like this floor? And it just can like, almost like it's like reflecting it up in through there, you know, but it's turning its chromatophores, the color, and not just color, the texture of the floor. If we put it on the bricks paper over there, it would take on a brick with the lines. I'm not kidding. I think they showed one. Now, this may have been a joke. I can't believe it was real. One on a chessboard, and it had squares, like a chessboard. Maybe that was a joke. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, right here you can see here's our octopus, but you can't tell he's there. Okay, and here he is. So not only does he make himself the same color as whatever this is, he makes himself the same texture of what that is. Little bumps come out. It's pretty amazing stuff. That's why I had to spend more time on these guys. So here we can see some little, here's the chromatophores lit up, right? Here's the chromatophores not lit up. This one might have had something done to it where he couldn't use his chromatophores. These are little babies, of course. But they're lit up right here. So you can see that they're sending little chemicals out there. We get really close. Oh, not really close. We're just seeing right here that he's hidden in the gravel right there. Okay. All right. About their vision, let's talk about their eyes. Okay, so in invertebrates, we know this is like a human eye. The frog right here has a lens behind a cornea with a retina in the back and the fluid in the middle. Well, here we have our squid has a very similar eye with a very large retina and a lens. It's a little bit flattened out. Their eye's a little bit flattened, but they have very good vision. So there's a squid eye right there. We'll be able to see those firsthand. Sometimes during the preservation process, some of those tissues like the clear cornea will get cloudy, so hopefully, and you'll be able to cut into the eyeball if you like today, if that's one of your goals today. Here we are looking up close. See iris in there, so it has almost a human-like part to it, except for, of course, it has an interesting line beneath it. So if we look at each one, this is the octopus, and is this a squid? Which one's the squid?
Snail.
A snail, a murex snail. Interesting. Okay, so octopus is the roundest one. I'm pretty sure this is the nautilus. Yeah, the nautilus, because it doesn't have a lens. The nautilus doesn't have a lens in it, but it has a little pinhole. Okay, have you ever seen people my age, Grandma, who can't see something and they do this? They look through like this. Do you know you can focus when you do that? Because I have a little pinhole just like that. So if I'm without my glasses and I need to read something, I can just look through a little pinhole just like that, and it totally focuses it. It has to do with the light coming through a very, very small space like that. Okay, and that's a way to bring focus into it. That's why squinting your eyes does it. It's doing the same thing. It's lessening the amount of light coming through and using your eyelashes to kind of make these little circles right there. So which one's the squid? I guess this one's got to be the squid too, because it's maybe not quite so round as the octopus, a little more flattened than a snail. Boy, look at how big the lens is on that snail right there. And then this guy, these are just pigment spots and pigment cups. These are lesser, not compoundized. All right, so what about propulsion? The way they move. All right, so they will introduce water inside the mantle here, and then squeeze it out through this little siphon area, and able to move very quickly. In fact, I have a video on that. Apparently. idea there? All right, so let's start with octopuses. Okay, the foot of the octopus is divided into 8 arms. That's why it's called an octopus, right? The 8. So 8 tentacles right there, but keep in mind those are the foot. Remember the foot on our clam? Look like that giant tongue coming out there. We're cutting that up into 8 now. They live in shallow waters. They spend their time on the ocean floor. Many are nocturnal, hiding under plants and rocks during the day. They have very pliable, bendy bodies. No hard shell, not even a pin inside of them like the squid. They can squeeze into small places. They're usually gray but change color quickly. Most of them are small, but some can get up to 30 feet across. Most of them are very tiny, though. In fact, the ones I'm probably not going to get an octopus to dissect, because the ones they send me are literally like 3 inches long and they cost $20, and I'm like, okay, that's not worth it. You know, we'll do something else. They have 8 arms or tentacles with a double row of suckers used for locomotion and capturing prey. Usually they'll hold on to something with one arm and they reach around. As they reach around for the food, they put it into their mouth. So there we can see the tentacle with the double row. All right, let's check this guy out.
Octopuses have elaborate cardiovascular and nervous systems. Their cardiovascular system includes 3 hearts. 2 pump blood to the gills, and a 3rd moves blood throughout the rest of the body. Unlike human blood, octopus blood is copper-based, which makes it appear blue. The octopus nervous system includes a brain, but 2/3 of the octopus's neurons are found throughout its body, especially in its arms. This means the arms have significant local control and sensory capabilities. They may even still reach or grasp after they are severed, and their suckers are able to sense chemicals. In other words, smell or taste. Octopuses are intelligent. Some scientists believe octopus intellect can be found in their ability to use tools and exhibit foresight, to retain complex memories, which helps them navigate mazes and solve puzzles, and to use visual cues, which helps them differentiate between human individuals. Octopuses have also been shown to play, an activity considered a sign of intelligence. Most octopus species only live between 1 and 2 years. Much of this short lifespan has to do with the octopus's reproductive process. When octopuses mate, males may be strangled and eaten by females. Males are often smaller than females, so they become overpowered and sometimes cannibalized once fertilization is complete. While females survive the mating process, they die after laying their eggs. Female octopuses guard their eggs for up to 8 weeks. During this time, the female's body self-destructs through cellular suicide until she dies. Octopus ink is deadly, even for the octopus. The ink is a seemingly innocent mixture of mucus and melanin. Melanin, the same dark pigment found in skin, hair, and eyes, also happens to contain the chemical compound tyrosinase, which can impair a predator's sight, taste, and smell. Octopuses and other cephalopods may use their ink to distract, confuse, and paralyze their predators. This mucus mixture may even block a fish's gills, causing the fish to suffocate. If an octopus cannot escape its own ink, its respiratory systems may be compromised, causing the octopus to suffocate and die. Octopuses are masters of mimicry and camouflage. They can trigger cells just underneath the surface of their skin to change color. The cells, called chromatophores, contain sacs of pigment that can turn various shades within milliseconds. Some octopuses, such as the common octopus, can also imitate textures. They can warp small segments of their skin, called papillae, to match textured environments. Species like the mimic octopus are able to not only camouflage themselves, but also manipulate the shape of their bodies to impersonate other animals. Their wily mimicry along with many other curious characteristics, are just a few reasons why octopuses are captivating creatures of the deep.
All right, cool stuff there. Oh, by the way, this is the purple ringed octopus, and it's deadly. And they're small, and they're so pretty. Don't touch them. If you're scuba diving used to, don't touch them. It's like venomous and poisonous, I think. Yeah, so it's like one of the worst ones on the planet, or some of the worst venom on the planet. All right, our squid. Our squid has 10 tentacles. 8 tentacles with the 2 larger feeding arms. I thought they had a special name, but feeding arms is what they're saying here. So we should be able to find that on our squid. All right, notice also their shape, very streamlined there for what we would call hydrodynamics, so it can move through the water pretty easy, like a torpedo kind of a thing. If you've ever seen the toys you throw in the pool, right? They're shaped like that. They can get through the water pretty easily. They eat fish, shrimp, crabs, and other squid. Yikes. The cone-shaped end is the mantle. That's the part we eat. It often has a fin, making it an arrow shape, kind of that arrow shape. It's conducive to swimming. The fin serves to stabilize the squid as well. They have good jet propulsion, and many will exhibit bioluminescence. In other words, they glow. Okay, they can glow like my little critters I brought that didn't glow for us that day, my little dinoflagellates that are just still alive and glowing fine in the evenings. I show it to my grandkids, and they're like, ooh, yeah, so they get to see it. It does create something called countershading. We'll talk more about countershading as we move through the animal kingdom. And that is, think about a fish, how they're kind of dark on the top and their bellies are white. That's because it's called countershading. If you're underneath it and you look up and the sky is up there, their white belly will blend into the brightness of the sky, which hides them. But if you're above them, they kind of, the darker color melts into the color of the ocean, right? So they give some protection from above. That's called countershading. All right, so here you can see one of our little squid. You see those chromatophores. And this one has the bioluminescent abilities to get those cells glowing, so they can. Some of them can do that, not all of them. The egg sac looks like this. Kind of cool looking. Those are all little individual eggs. Sometimes they wash up on the beach. People don't know what they are. It looks like a little, kind of sounds like a flower, but it's an egg pod.
So is that a lot of different squid, or is that just one?
Individuals in each one of those. Giant squid right here. Now, I will tell you something about the giant squid. We're not 100% sure about it. Okay, so we haven't ever seen a living giant squid. We have seen some dead ones that are pretty darn big. Okay, so they've been I remember like Japanese fishermen. Japanese are really, really into fishing. They love their seafood. They're an island nation. Makes sense. And so sometimes when they go fishing, they'll pull stuff up, and they pulled up a giant squid before. Well, we think it was a giant squid, really big. And this I don't know if this is a dead one right here or whatever. They tend to stay deep in the ocean. But the idea of them being really giant and taking on whales, that's the story, right? The reason we know about this, think about a whale. A whale has to come to the surface to breathe. All right, so they come up from deep, they'll go diving down really deeply. And when they come up, we have found whales, we see whales with giant scars on them. And that's where we get the idea of the giant squid, is that they've been attacked by this giant squid, and that they've left those giant scars, and the size of those scars give us an idea of how big these creatures are. But we haven't really seen them like living, like we haven't taken a submarine down and seen some living in their natural habitats or anything. We've not seen any of that. We've only seen evidence, this from the whale, and then some of these ones that have washed up. We do have this one. This is actually a frozen giant squid. It's in Australia. And honestly, I can't remember how they got this, but it is frozen in a block of ice. It says that it's 23 feet long, so that's pretty giant. But they're still trying to establish if it's a whole different species, you understand? Or just a really large, regular old squid. Yeah. All right, let's see if this is a video. Yeah. Oh, here's our squid moving, yeah. That's a little mantle part, makes the arrow. cuttle with it, but cuttlefish. It says they're a graceful mollusk. Spend most of their time on the bottom of the ocean. They lay flat like a stingray. They hide. They have a siphon-like structure called a hyponone, to stir up the sand and locate the food. They lay in wait, camouflage, same thing with the chromatophores. They have an internal shell, so they do have an actual shell, not like this little pin we're going to see in our squid, but it's an actual shell, internal, made of calcium carbonate.
Like a skull almost?
Except it's not there. Yeah, okay, maybe. I'll show you a picture of it here, just so you'll actually recognize it. You've probably seen it, okay? 10 arms, 2 of them are stored in pouches, under their eyes. In pouches under their eyes that shoot out to catch fish, crabs, shrimps, and mollusks. So they're crazy kind of creatures. Here's what they look like, a little bit like a squid. Yeah, and so I guess, I don't know if these are the ones hiding in the eyes, or maybe these are, right here. But notice, look at the eye there. So it's not quite as complicated as the squid, but it's really good. Here we are, look at their face. Kind of cute. All right, so inside they have this bone called the cuttle bone. Has anybody ever had a parakeet? Any kind of little bird like that? You might recognize that. You ever seen that in a pet store? It's actually from this critter. And what it provides for the bird, you put it in a bird cage, and they peck at it. It gives them calcium. So it's a way for them to eat calcium. That's the cuttle bone. It's called the cuttle bone. And people harvest them, I guess, for bird cages, for birds to eat. Yeah. You can see it here. So here's our critter, and you see the bone underneath it. This is a dead one that washed ashore. You see those tentacles with its feeding tentacles there, and see the bone underneath that flesh right there? You can see that kind of landing on top of that bone right there. So pretty cool. Let's watch a little video about him.
The sea holds a predator both well-armed and well-concealed. The cuttlefish. This master of disguise has the ability to project a dazzling array of pulsating colors. But if that weren't enough, the cuttlefish also has an extraordinary ability to transform the shape of its entire body. The titan of the species is the Australian giant cuttlefish. Growing nearly 20 inches long and sometimes weighing more than 10 pounds. With such talent for camouflage, the cuttlefish can creep right up to prey. The cuttlefish prepares its main weapon. Two long tentacles tipped with suction cups that capture prey and deliver it to a beak sharp enough to make mincemeat of crab shell. The tentacles fire in a few hundredths of a second. Truly sudden death.
Pretty cool. All right, those are their little cluster called sea grapes. Yeah, their little babies are in there. So they're hanging off of something. So similar to those ones that I showed you from the squid, the little, little pouches right there. You can actually see the creatures in there. All right, now the nautilus. This is what I forgot to bring today. I have a nautilus shell. I forgot it, so I'll bring it another time. The chambered nautilus is the only cephalopod that secretes an external shell. All right. Additionally, they have more tentacles than other cephalopods. Between 38 and 90 tentacles come out of the front of them. As soon as the nautilus hatches, 2 of its arms start to make a thin shell. and its body and tentacles overflow the shell most of the time. That's because they live only in the outermost compartment of the chamber created inside the cell. The other compartments they can put gas or water in to give them buoyancy. So they can fill it with water, and the water makes them get heavy down to the bottom. They also have a hood that covers the opening of the nautilus as it pulls himself can't quite pull himself all the way in all the time. And they live deep in the ocean and tend to be nocturnal. So they're kind of hard to see just on a regular, dive. If you're maybe a night dive, you'd be able to see those guys. All right, they look something like this. Notice the eye, but we saw earlier that eye's not nearly as complex as the squid eye, but it does have the pinhole. Okay, this is the one with the little pinhole in there where they're able to see. They're also kind of clumsy. This is the hood here on the top that allows it to close over the tentacles, but the tentacles are really bursting out, and they don't always get covered up that way. But it does offer a little bit of protection right here from any kind of predator. Here's what the shell, so it's called the chambered nautilus. And when they start off, they're living right in here, right? And as they grow bigger, they occupy the outermost shell, the outermost chamber of the shell, I should say, all right? So, and then they close it off. But in between, you can see these little, right in the middle there's a little hole that goes through there. So picture this on this outermost part right here, all right? So that would be, y'all can't see that, can you? The outermost part. This is where the creature's living, but water can be put through those little spouts into each one of those chambers. And they add water to it, it makes them heavy and they fall down. Then they can squeeze the water out and air goes into there. They actually use air from the oxygen from their gills. They can squeeze that in there, and then they'll rise to the top. Pretty cool. Here is the eye, that pinhole kind of eye. Back to this real quick. I will tell you that geometrically speaking, apparently the ratio on that is pretty perfect. So going from one to the next is like a ratio. Like the Greeks used to be fascinated with that. It was part of the golden rectangle thing that they used to study. And said it was just kind of like a bee. A bee makes a hive that's almost a perfect hexagon. These are almost perfect ratio, which is pretty amazing for a creature that doesn't know much, right? Not a very smart creature. And that's what the internal stuff. So here we go. You see how it's living right here in that outer part right here? All those tentacles coming out of there. And these for ballast. There's other chambers right there. It looks something like that. Here's the internal part. You see the gills, the mouth up here, the beak, and then the gut and everything in there. Okay, we're gonna watch this guy swim for a little bit, then it'll be time for our lab. You see they're kind of clumsy. I think he's trying to get away from the guy with the camera. Pages 33 through 34, which may be wrong because I think the books have changed somewhat. But you're going to be looking for each one of these things during our dissection right here. And then apparently in the coloring book, you're going to be coloring the squid.